Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin.
And here's the twist.
Please welcome to the stage Axios defense reporter Colin Demarest.
What's up, everyone? I am Colin Demarest, author of Axios Future Defense, a weekly newsletter out every Wednesday. This week's edition is in the oven, needs a little more time to cook, but it will hit your inbox shortly. Welcome to day one of 3 of our massive AI takeover week here in DC. We're kicking things off tonight with a focus on defense, drones, AI, and everything in between. I'm glad you guys could start the party with us. If you're not already subscribed to Future of Defense, go to Axios.com. You can find the link there. I would appreciate your helping me pay for my groceries. While I also have the mic, November 19th, Axios Future Defense Summit here in DC. Sign up to that. I think it's a fantastic event, probably second to AI+. Over the next few days, we've got a packed event lineup all right here at the National Building Museum. Tonight's focus is AI and defense, as I said. Tomorrow we'll return to regional workforce issues, and we'll wrap up with our 4th annual DC Summit on Wednesday. Everyone here is automatically registered, so stick around, come back, we'd love to have you. One quick programming note at the top. Jacob Hellberg is no longer able to join us this evening, but don't fret. We still have 2 fantastic conversations that I'm doing, and then my boss has another fantastic one. So without further ado, let's get started.
And now, a message from our sponsor.
DFR2, area is clear. Logging DFR2.
A seismic shift is underway for how the service operates.
Drones made by Skydio.
First of its kind program is taking flight.
Launching a new drone program.
As first responders.
Launching from the roof of police headquarters.
They're not just going to outages, they're trying to prevent them.
When the emergency call comes in, every second counts.
The drone spotted him in the woods.
This life-saving technology, gearing up their drones with flotation devices.
Used to help save swimmers at sea.
Unleashing American drone dominance.
Drones commonly used in the military. This one right here, called the Skydio, is our most popular one.
Nothing has provided the level of confidence that the X-10 does.
The DFR drone actually beat me there.
When he saw the drone, he knew he was caught.
On the ground. Drone pilot got on scene, observed a guy holding a shotgun.
Here they're using the drone to locate someone.
Hey, the drone has somebody running through the woods.
We need to have the latest technology that's on the battlefield.
We're not waiting for the future of policing, we're building it.
Police say it is a game changer.
Sheriff calls the drones a game changer.
Game changer. Game changer.
A game changer.
One of the most significant paradigm shifts I've seen in my career.
Introducing our View from the Top moderator and Axios publisher, Nicholas Johnston.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Nicholas Johnson. I'm the publisher of Axios. Thank you for joining me, I think in the biggest room I've ever played before. It's a real honor to be here to kick off 3 great days of programming for the AI plus DC Summit for Axios here in Washington. Thanks for all of you being here. Congrats on being here, too. This is an invite-only exclusive crowd, so I'm glad all of you folks made the cut. We're grateful that you're here. Also, hugely grateful to all of our partners at Axios. Nothing we do at Axios. Great conversations like this, investments in journalism around the country, none of that is possible without the support of our partners. So we're very grateful for Skydio for making today's big kickoff possible. And I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a View from the Top conversation, Skydio's CEO and co-founder, Adam Bree. Adam, welcome to AI Plus DC. How are you, sir?
Doing well.
Have a seat. Before we jump in here, though, I love it when folks bring cool things to show off. So before we start, you got to introduce us to our friends here. Oh, this one woke up. What are we looking at here on the sides of the stage?
So this is the Skydio dock, and this is a piece of hardware that turns the drone into infrastructure. So the old way of using a drone is you send a person out with the drone, they fly it around manually. The new way is you install the dock anywhere that you might need a drone, and it turns it into a fully autonomous device. So it can be flown and operated remotely, controlled via the cloud, scheduled in programs to run missions, and it's really a paradigm shift in the way these things are used, and we're already seeing 10x or more scale of usage and impact.
So the drones start from there, fly off, do their mission, return to there, they're charged from there, so you can keep the mission going.
Yeah, so the dock is network connected, it's charged, it has a charger in it, it heats it, cools it, whatever it needs to keep it ready to fly 24/7.
All right, so now that we've been introduced to the cool things on the side, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about drones, which are such a hot topic. We had Secretary Hedgeseth in the video beforehand. The Trump administration has a drone dominance initiative. Such a big topic of conversation. Something you've been involved with a while, though. So can you take a step back and tell us a little bit about Skydio and your involvement with the military in drones?
Yeah, so Skydio was started in 2014, way before drones were cool, and we started working with the military in 2018 and 2019. So we didn't know anything about government engagement or military sales at the time. We were really a pure consumer company. But I think thanks to some foresight from folks in the Department of War, they realized that this new class of small, light electric quadcopter was going to be important on the battlefield. And over the last 5 years, we've grown a lot there. I think we're now the largest supplier of drones by unit volume to the military. And in fact, just last week announced that we closed a $50 million order with the Army for 3,000 Skydio X10. So this is the largest single vendor order in the history of the Army. So this is work that we're super proud of. At this point, we work with every branch of the Department of War, dozens of allies around the world.
The war in Ukraine, I think, brought drones to the forefront of a lot of people's minds, see how they actually work. As someone who's been like living this for years now and on the cutting edge, tell us a little about the lessons that you've learned from that.
Well, look, I think the most obvious lesson and the correct one is that drones are probably the essential technology for the future of warfare. But just under the surface there is it's a constant back and forth between drone technology and electronic warfare technology. So we have some painful firsthand experience with this. So our predecessor drone, the X2, was really designed to meet the Army's requirements for short-range reconnaissance. We won that program, and shortly after we won it, the conflict in Ukraine started. So we delivered a bunch of X2 systems to Ukraine and found that they were really ill-suited to the environment there with jamming and GPS denial. So I've been to Ukraine a couple times. A bunch of folks on our team have spent a lot of time there. We've learned a bunch of the hard lessons of what it takes to make these systems actually useful, and we essentially pivoted all of our engineering focus to do whatever it took to make these systems actually useful on the front lines versus going after some of the requirements for programs here. And in the short term, this was bad for us. We actually lost a program here because of it, but over the long term, it's turned out well, and I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing quite a bit of success now, is now there's quite a bit of pressure to deploy systems that actually work, that are responsive to soldier feedback. We've seen tremendous momentum there over the last 12 to 18 months, which I think is obviously the right thing to do for the warfighter, but also benefits the companies that have learned the painful lessons of what it takes to make these things work.
I mean, we're here in Washington, D.C. This is a crowd that probably plays a big role in the policy and decision-making of the government. Do you think they are learning the right lessons from Ukraine? Do you think there are takeaways they might be missing?
Well, I think, in general, I think there is increasing and broad awareness that drones are the critical technology for the future of warfare. I honestly think it would be hard for us to do too much. Under the new administration, they've been very aggressive, leaning forward, drone dominance, leaning forward on domestic supply chains. I mean, I think all these things are the right moves. I think it would be hard to lean too far forward into the future. I mean, we're seeing this now in Iran. Like, the weapon systems we have are extremely effective, but they're also extremely expensive. And so there's a massive cost and resource asymmetry versus our adversaries. And then the other thing that I think is maybe slightly less obvious, but is very clear in Ukraine, and I think is going to become clear in Iran as well, is we know with 100% certainty that our adversaries are going to be flying drones made in China. And it's critical, obviously, that we have domestic source of drones, domestic supply chain, but if we want to be globally competitive, we need to be building world-leading drones here in the US, which is something that we actually have some interesting history on. Most of our business is in the civilian sector, where we compete head-to-head against Chinese companies. So we've seen what that looks like, and it's not easy, but it is possible.
Skydio is a dual-use company, though. It's not just about drones for the military. Tell us a little bit about how they're being used for civilian purposes as well.
Yeah, so our biggest and fastest growing segments are in the civilian world, and this is where the dock is really leading the way. So it's a paradigm shift in how drones are used. These things are being built, bought, and installed by the thousands for critical infrastructure inspection, so for energy utilities, construction companies, departments of transportation, the whole transportation grid. But the biggest and fastest growing segment within that is actually law enforcement and public safety.
Right.
So the concept here is called drone as first responder. And the idea is that you put docked drones on the roof of police stations and fire stations around a city or a county, and then you can just click a button and send the drone to an emergency. And it's a total shift in the way policing works. It might take 5 or 10 minutes for a responding officer to get there on the ground, but the drone oftentimes gets there in 60 seconds, and it just gives you a complete picture of what's happening.
I mean, you showed me a video before we came on stage here of like a real-time deployment of that, where it was 90 seconds, the drone was over the house, they saw the guy running out, and it gave the police department just complete vision over everything that's happening here.
Totally. And the scale and diversity of impact is as diverse in law enforcement. It can be finding a missing person who's lost in the woods. It can be seeing a suspect fleeing. So there was a a shooting one of our customers observed in Colorado where somebody shot somebody in the parking lot of a apartment complex. The drone got there just in time to see the suspect putting the gun into his pocket and going back into his apartment. So the difference between having the drone and not having the drone there is life-saving, right? Because here the officers know who did it, they know where he is, they know he's still armed, so they can surround that apartment building, call him out, get him to come out. Without the drone, they have no idea, and the chances of one of the officers getting shot, somebody else getting shot, or them having to shoot the suspect go way up. It's a very wide spectrum of impact, but it's pretty
a huge part of journalism is show, don't tell. So instead of just talking about it, I think we have some videos where we can just look at it. The first one, I think, is some drone tech about to do with counter.
One of the applications that's kind of organically emerged, our customers get the credit for this, not us, is using drones as a counter drone tool. So this is from the MLB All-Star game in Cobb County near Atlanta. So they were using a D-drone sensor. It's a partner of ours, to detect where a drone was being flown that it shouldn't, and then using our drone to get up and find the operator. So in a public safety context, this is usually the first problem you have to deal with when you have nefarious drones being flown, is you need to find the operator and do something about them. And it turns out that drones are actually an incredibly powerful tool to do this.
Well, don't take your word for it. We have a special guest, I think live via satellite. So this is from the police department in Laredo, Texas. I think if we can splice that in.
Yeah, we should have Chief Rodriguez.
And we'll be able to see a real-time application of that. Oh, here we go.
We have Chief joining us.
Hello, Chief. He's showing up behind you.
All right.
Can you all hear me?
We can, sir. Thanks for joining us. Can you just tell us where we are and what we're looking at to kind of ground the audience here?
Well, we're here in Laredo, Texas, obviously a border city here right next to Mexico, right next to the state of Tamaulipas from Mexico. We're the #1 inland port in the nation. A lot of critical infrastructure for our country, but more than anything is the technology that has been implemented in our department has brought us a lot of success. But I can tell you that the drone technology that we've implemented with the help and support of Skydio has been a tremendous boost, not only within the department and within the city, but also to our officers, because of the fact that it brings us multiple things to our department. One being officer safety, second one being the immediate response to a specific location, that we don't have to be relying on the officers to get there within 4 to 5 minutes. Now we can get there with between 2 to 3 minutes, and it brings that sense of comfort to the people that we're responding to, that were there already, having eyes as to what the incident that is occurring, and be able to deploy a lot faster and a lot better. But one of the things that I do want to talk about is the fact that due to the current environment that we're in right now, where it's getting harder and harder to hire police officers, I can tell you that we're 78 officers short here in Laredo, Texas. We're supposed to be 575 officers strong department. We're now down to 498 officers. And so having the drone technology and this type of drone technology, it's a force multiplier in many ways. Because of the fact that we have put our officers in strategic locations in the city to take care of hotspots and things like that, it gives us the ability to use the drone technology to respond to things, not only when it comes to a hot situation, but also when it comes to priority twos, what we call priority twos, which is burglar alarms. Be able to respond to anything that has to do with suspicious activity. Before we deploy our officers and take them away from that real hot zone, we deploy our drone to make sure that we have a real situation going on versus somebody just calling in, whether it be a situation where there's the suspect already left and we can follow it up later, or a situation where the burglar alarm, the owner already responded, but the drone is there to make sure that everybody's safe. So thinking about this, I can tell you that right now we're flying our drone from one of our stations, and we're going to be showing you where the critical infrastructure is in Laredo, and that's got to do a lot with our bridges, right? Our international bridges, which has a lot to do with every single product that comes into our country.
Maybe just to like foot stomp. So this is actually live video we're seeing. Is that right? So this is a drone being flown remotely that launched from a dock that one of your officers is controlling. That's giving us a live view of this border crossing.
So along this, right, comes everything else, right? It comes cartel activity. It comes into the human smuggling activity. And so when we're talking about drones, we have situations where, can you all still hear me?
Yeah.
We have situations where cartels are requesting, they're famous for requesting stolen vehicles from our country. And one of the major lots that we have here in our city is GM products. And as we know, GM products are very popular with cartels because they're still made out of steel, and they can weld things to them to make them, to counter their militaries in Mexico. So when they were requesting this specific product, we actually saw a drone from their side from that side of the border overlooking the operation that they were doing over here to steal 17 GMCs. And so what we did, we deployed our drone. We were able to get Border Patrol involved to make sure that we countered their drone and make sure that we were able to identify every single subject that was doing the auto theft part of it. And so we were able to recover a total of 15 of those trucks. The other 2 were able to cross into Mexico. And so these are the situations that we encountered. But I can tell you, we didn't have eyes in the sky like we do, because we do not have, and we cannot afford a helicopter, but we can definitely afford this technology, which the way that I think about this is it's a force multiplier, and it's sometimes better technology than having a bird. By the time we get that thing up in the air and be able to deploy to the location that we want it, this drone can get there in minutes. And so for us, it is a force multiplier. It is now a technology that our city council and our mayor has embraced, and that they now want to grow it because of the fact of the success stories that we've had. The last one that I can share, right, as to why it is important that we continue growing this is because we recently, just last week, we had a shots fired incident in a school where there was a baseball game going on. There was shots fired between 2 juveniles. We were able to detect that with another technology, but the moment that we deploy our drone was able to find the vehicle that was involved. Our investigators and our special units were able to get there and be able to detain the suspect. From there, an investigation was launched, and we were able to detain a total of 4 suspects that were involved in this incident. If the deployment of this drone wouldn't have gotten there within the minutes that we wanted for it to get there, we would have never found, we would have taken longer to find the subjects in matter. So definitely something that we're growing, definitely something that I think at this point every department is now going to need. But more than anything, it elevates morale, it elevates everything that we're doing here to another level, because now we're thinking future. And the conversations that we had with Skydio as to the capabilities of this drone, for us, it's a win-win. And in the future, I think we're just going to be a much better and safer country because of this technology.
Chief Rodriguez, thank you so much for taking the time with us in that demo. We should probably let you get back to your real job. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I love that because so many of the conversations I get to have on stage about technology are about theoretical technology, a thing that might be coming in the future. But that's real. That's what we just saw.
We
and
caught
I
up
think
to
it's
the
worth
future.
emphasizing here what he talked about and what we talked about before is the force multiplication, right? When you speak to public safety offices and officers, how does having a drone mean they get to change the composition and what their police force is able to do?
Well, the story that you heard there is very common, that recruiting has been super difficult for the last few years. The vast majority of agencies are short-staffed, but crime isn't short-staffed. You know, they're dealing oftentimes with more severe problems than they've ever faced. And so this is an incredibly powerful tool for them to just do more with less. And it's almost always staffed by sworn officers. You've got a sworn officer there flying the drone, but they're very highly leveraged. They can be flying multiple drones simultaneously. They can be managing multiple incidents. They're basically working as a team with the responding officers on the ground. And it's satisfying for me to hear these stories and see these videos. It really gives them an asymmetric advantage against the criminals that they're dealing with, because they can see exactly what's happening when and where they need to, right, and direct responding resources.
The word he used, force multiplication, is the one that really jumps out at me. Well, let's spin this forward then. Like at Axios, we're all about the future. As you look ahead, what does the future hold for drone use at the federal level?
Well, I often think, and I think it's really true, the future's here, it's just not evenly distributed. So we're seeing, I'd say it's been the case for the last decade plus that civilian usage of drones has in many ways ran ahead of what's happened in the military and in the federal space. And I think that that's happening again with the dock. So we're seeing docks really proliferate with our commercial and state and local customers. But there's huge need and huge opportunity for this stuff at the federal level. So it wasn't an accident that we were in Laredo there. I think border security is one of the most clear examples of this, where you could, with not that many dock drones, you could cover a very, very large area to provide force multiplication to border agents. Base security is another obvious major application. And we have some customers that are doing great pioneering work here. It's still relatively small scale, but the examples that we're seeing from them and the impact that it can create is pretty astounding. And I think we actually
we have one more video from the Army Depot to show, I think, for the base security example.
Perhaps.
Enter buffering.
The other thing that I'll say, we're in a moment where AI is taking off, and people think and talk a lot, in Silicon Valley where we're based, people are talking about agentic AI, of having these AI agents that can go off and do things for you, which is great. In many ways, I think you can think of drones and robots as a physical instantiation of agentic AI. And so when we're building our software, we believe there's no substitute for human judgment, human input, human oversight, but we're really building these things to provide maximum leverage to the human operators that are deploying them.
And so we should say, before we wrap up here, in the back you've brought a couple demo situations. Now I'm hearing that the video has arrived, so we'll see if it shows up.
Chris
one
Williams,
more.
the lead integrator for the PRISM project here at Bluegrass Army Depot underneath the Physical Security Enterprise and Analysis Group. Here at Bluegrass, we are developing and currently testing the PRISM project. PRISM integrates Skydio autonomous drone docks with Skyla deep neural artificial intelligence to deliver persistent aerial eyes that never blink day or night. We can't solve modern threats by adding more bodies, but can supplement and upgrade our defenders. Autonomous drones with artificial intelligence act as a true force multiplier. They launch, patrol, and return 24/7 without intervention. One dock and a few drones modernize the security capability across the installations. PRISM can fuse sensors, cameras, and autonomous drones with artificial intelligence for highly accurate threat identification while minimizing false alerts. PRISM creates real-time situational awareness with instant AI-enhanced eyes on the scene during critical incidents. It improves efficiency and resource utilization by automating tasks and focusing efforts on genuine threats. It accelerates response times with autonomous patrols, as you see here, and detects with real-time alerts. As the Honorable Secretary of War, Mr. Hicks, has said, drones are the future of warfare. Manned aircraft is not. This is that future. Smarter base defense, faster protection, always vigilant, eyes that never blink.
One thing I love about Axios journalism is we are information dense. We have covered a lot in this conversation. Before we wrap up, I do want to point people back to the back of the stage. You've brought a couple more demos, a couple examples, a couple simulators where people can explore. Tell us a little bit about what you have in the back before we have to jump.
Yeah, well, I think there's no better way to understand this stuff than to see it and experience it firsthand. So we've got the docks here, we've got docks and drones in the back, we've got fly stations where anybody that's interested can sit down and experience what the piloting experience is like for yourselves, and we've got a bunch of folks on our team back there that would love to chat.
That's awesome, Adam. Thank you so much for being here. Huge thanks to Skydio for being a part of this, making all of this possible. And now we're going to bring Colin up to continue the conversation.
Please welcome to the stage Axios defense reporter Colin Demarest.
What's up, y'all? I'm back. For this next conversation, please help me welcome the 35th U.S. Deputy Defense Secretary, Kathleen Hicks. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's a bit of a dramatic walk-up, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's a beautiful building.
I know. I know. I got to live up to the moment.
Yeah.
Last time we spoke, you were launching and co-leading the Reforge Commission with the Atlantic Council, focused on American industrial health, potential wartime production footing, and kind of American innovation in general. I would love your assessment on those three things and maybe if you were a teacher, what letter grade would you give each of them?
Oh, well, let me give an overall grade. It's a little easier. I think we're in a solid C, aiming toward an A. And I think the great thing about the United States is we've proven over and over again that we have the potential for the A. But there's absolutely bipartisan agreement all across not only Washington, but across industry that we have both a manufacturing crisis writ large in the United States. I like to say frequently that the defense industrial base is just a reflection of the overall industrial base, and that's particularly the case as we get more and more integrated dual-use capabilities, commercial technology. That's just even more the case. And we're really challenged in this country. It's not been a major priority for decades and decades. Shipbuilding is probably the example people think of. It's certainly not on its own, but the country has made a decision back in the 1950s that fundamentally changed the U.S. position over time on shipbuilding. And you can replicate that, sorry, didn't mean to do that. You can replicate in many other warfighting areas. So yeah, I think we're pretty much at a C. There's a lot of potential in advanced manufacturing, new technologies, workforce training, on and on and on. Digital twinning, and there's a lot of potentiality working alongside allies and partners who bring strengths in some of these areas to improve our position.
I was going to say, how do you improve that position? You said crisis. Shipbuilding, I think, might be one of the biggest crises the U.S. faces.
Well, this is a long answer. I think the first thing to say, again, is it's a comprehensive set of solutions. There's no silver bullet for fixing what ails us in our industrial base and what ails us on things like acquisition and sustainment. And I really want to emphasize that sustainment side, because a lot of our challenges are not just about how we create the capability, but really how we maintain, sustain a ready capability over time. So we're challenged on all those things. I think having better data transparency, visibility to senior decision makers, both in Congress but in the executive branch, helps a lot. It shines a light on where we're doing well and where we're doing poorly. That's true in industry, having that information from industry, and that's true in the oversight functions of government where we need to have that information. So basic, strong management and governance, which is enabled by better data flow, quality data flow, I think makes a huge difference in how we can see and go after the problem areas. I do think workforce training is a major issue for us. It varies by sector, it varies by part of the country, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunity there. We have an incredible workforce here in the United States. The trades are on the rise, which is good. I think there's a recognition that, especially in an age of incoming AI transformation, that there's a lot of opportunity for artisans and skilled workers. I could go on and on. The supply chain, the security of our supply chain, both with regard to foreign countries, cybersecurity, et cetera, but also with regard to multiple producers. We have let much of our supply chain go untested. And I think COVID was the first indicator for the overall economy of the risk you take when you do that. I always use the example of the 4 months of baby formula crisis. And then folks would turn to DOD and say, why can't you generate that Javelin in a week, right? And so if you think about how complex many of our systems are, first there's opportunity to re-explore, like, should all our systems be that complex? Should we have some capabilities that are small and smart and cheap that we can create much more quickly and scale more quickly, but then more generally helping the public understand what it takes to make sure that we invest what we need to create our long-term capabilities. That is an amuse-bouche, I think, of the issue set.
You said smart and small and cheap.
Yeah.
And so in August 2023, you rolled out Replicator at the ETI conference, I believe. Feels like lifetimes ago. Do you think Replicator, as you laid it out, met its goals? Or if you want to phrase it differently, what would you have done differently?
Yeah, so when I departed on January 20th of last year, it was absolutely on track to meet its goals. What I have seen publicly, and I only have public awareness like anyone else, we saw the Indo-PACOM commander, for instance, I think in December of last year, so just a few months ago, say it's alive.
Yeah. DAWG, right? The Defense Autonomous Weapons Group,
yes,
or whatever that acronym
and then
is.
same on Replicator 2. We've seen multiple references to both Replicator 1, which is the autonomy, the mass drone effects, and then we have seen on Replicator 2, which is the counter drone capability, both obviously incredibly relevant in what we're seeing in Iran as well as Ukraine. Both those initiatives appear to still be underway. I can't speak to where they were exactly in that August of 2025, but I do feel that we have had a significant effect.
You left happy with what Replicator was.
I left happy, and I am happy to see that this continues on as a major focus area across Congress and across the Biden to Trump administrations. And I think that's just logical. That's where warfare is going.
We also now have drone dominance through Secretary
yes.
Hegseth. $1 billion for thousands of drones in a few short years. Sounds a little familiar. Do you think that's the rightful successor, kind of the right approach?
I think that's the general direction. I mean, I think what I would say is, as we said at the time that I rolled Replicator out and repeated, the big push, Replicator is the pathfinder. The big push is in the budgets, in the service budgets. So we had rolled out the 25 budget, it's hard to keep track at this point, and had put a lot of dollars into those service programs. The Trump administration, I guess, continued that effort. I'm not in a position to say how much they might have changed or grown what we were planning in the 26 budget that they then took responsibility for. But I think it's all in the same direction. That's what I would say, which is you got to have the pathfinder to help you work through all those policy and authorities problems, as well as the integration. The system integration is a big piece of the challenge set, tests, experimentation, all that. I think Replicator definitely did its duty there, and I can see from what they're doing, for example, down in CENTCOM, a lot of the same threads of how they're doing it, the legacy of that. But the real change is going to be in the big budgets, and that is what we need to see here. If we can get a budget, we will see, what's produced.
What would you spend $1.5 trillion on, speaking of budget?
No comment on that. Yeah. No, not my job anymore.
You mentioned China and AI earlier, and you've described them in the past as a talented fast follower.
Yes.
Who is winning that AI race now? And then how small or big is that gap?
Yeah, I think first of all, from a potentiality, I'll make the same basic point I did earlier, perspective, this is our race to lose, to the extent that you think of it as a race. The United States has the intellectual underpinnings, we have the talent, we still attract that talent, and we have the ecosystem. So if you think about Silicon Valley, it's not the only place, people go there to do new ventures, to start up industries around AI, and there's a reason for that. Like attracts like, and it attracts a lot of talent. Here's where we're failing, I think, nationally. We don't have a policy structure for AI, and it's extremely difficult for us to move forward. Right now, we're having the Defense Department making decisions without really having that broad congressional-led or White House-led conversation about how to frame up AI. So I think that's an inhibitor to us, and I think that's something that's probably recognized on a bipartisan basis. People may have different partisan views about how to proceed, but we do need to get moving on that. I think another big inhibitor is, how we've approached research support to universities, our approach to H-1B visas and bringing in talent, attracting talent from overseas. China is very happy to take advantage of that by putting their money into the research areas. That attracts talent, and then of course opening their doors to that talent from all over the world, but notably India, Southeast Asia, and other areas of the world where folks might be attracted to work there. So those, I think, are real inhibitors to where we need to go.
What's the U.S. advantage, though? What's the distinct U.S. advantage? You've said it's better data. Is that from wars? Is that from simulations? Or is it something completely different?
There are multiple advantages. The data point is specific to defense, and that is that we have much more operational experience, and we have allies and partners who have a lot of operational experience, and so we can learn fast from data that we have.
Is there a world where Washington and Beijing agree to AI rules of the road?
Yes, absolutely.
How do you get there, I guess, is then the next question.
Well, what we did in our administration was pursued, obviously bilateral talks with them. I think, unlike an area like nuclear weapons, where the Chinese, my assessment would be, believe they can do better not negotiating. I think because AI is at this place where there's a real competition, there's opportunity in that to set some rules. So I think they may be more inclined to do so. I think that could be bilaterally, as I said. But there are some UN and other venues where there's ongoing conversations the U.S. has been very active in that the Chinese could come forward to.
Do you see the weapons buying and trying, the acquisition reform that the Pentagon under this Trump administration, is that positive? Is that negative? What's your read on that?
Yeah, I think it's positive. I mean, I think that we are on a lengthy journey of reforming. The challenge that stands before us right now is we have been through dozens and dozens of acquisition reform eras, periods, efforts.
What makes this one stick, right?
And the biggest issue I have seen is I don't see any visibility in the execution. It doesn't mean it's not happening. Many things are not visible to me, but for instance, in that November Hegseth memo, there were call-outs for 30-day and 60-day implementation efforts, much of which is for the Undersecretary for Acquisition. I have not seen evidence that those have moved forward. Last summer was the reform of the requirements process and the marrying, I guess I would say, in a board that the Deputy Secretary and the Vice Chairman would co-lead for resourcing and requirements. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of these ideas. They could be quite promising. I haven't seen any reporting or indications, readouts from the department itself that those are underway. So I think it's good that there's a lot of emphasis here. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think the fact that Congress appears to be willing to go forward on the appropriator side to try some of these things is very promising. But they have to get executed or they don't actually move the ball. And worse, if they're not executed well or they're not executed, I think there could be those who use that as an opportunity to go backwards a little bit. So
we're running short on time here, but I wanted to get this last question in. The surprise I promised you. In 2023, you took oversight of AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Was that fun? And are aliens real?
Aliens, I don't know if aliens are real. There's no evidence of aliens ever visiting the United States or the Defense Department.
They didn't touch down in the courtyard?
Having any hidden assets or things left behind, aliens or alien craft. I would say, I'm not sure I would say fun. I think the team there is incredibly, that I worked with at least, incredibly scientifically minded, rigorous, focused, trying hard to create transparency. And so that's why I say it's difficult when folks don't trust you. They're not going to trust you. No, there are people here who are like, do not believe me right now. So that's a very challenging environment to try to bring your the truth forward, but have just a lot of cynicism around institutions, around the Defense Department in particular, and on this issue. So, but a good group of people.
Awesome. We're going to have to leave it there. Kathleen, thanks for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. For our next guest, I'm excited to welcome former Defense Secretary and Red Cell Partners Director and National Security Practice Chairman, Dr. Mark Esper. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thanks for making the trip.
Oh, great.
So I would like to start with the news of the day with you.
Oh, no alien question?
No, if you want to address the alien question, I'll take it. The U.S. is 3 weeks into the Iran war, roughly.
4. Yep.
4. What is your major takeaway? What is standing out to you the most this month in?
I think the prowess of the U.S. military is once again on display with what we're doing. I think in terms of the military objectives that General Dan Kane outlined, taking down the Navy, the Air Force, ballistic missiles, production, et cetera, degrading nuclear. They've made incredible progress on those things. I'm not hearing as much about the nuclear, but I think the military objectives are being accomplished. Now, of course, it's unclear what the political objectives are. The president has moved around and said different things at times, and so it's hard to see what the yardstick is at that when it comes to that. At the end of the day, it's going to be the political yardstick that determines, win, loss, how much of a victory, whatever the case may be. But what's interesting now, I think, is the Iranians, my sense is they survived the decapitation. They probably feel like they've taken 3 weeks of, America's and Israel's best, and they've survived. There's no signs of the regime fracturing. I mean, the DNI said that the other day in the hearing, and they feel emboldened, so much so that they're making demands as to what would take to have a negotiated end to the conflict. So they are emboldened. I don't see them giving up anytime soon. And the president, meanwhile, is under a lot of pressure, increasing pressure because of the economics of all this and what it may mean politically going into the new year. So it's going to be, look, war is a contest of wills. And it's going to see who can withstand these various pressures longer. The military pressure being placed on Iran, absent any type of uprising or a collapse of the regime, versus, the politics in the West, pressure due to economic pressure coming through gas and oil and every other byproduct that comes out of that 20% that's being cut off from the strait.
Does this offensive, this epic fury, risk another forever war in the Middle East? I think that's the topic du jour, right?
It depends on how long it goes and how it turns out, and the commitment, the commitment of ground forces, right, would be a very big step forward, and so it just depends on how long this goes and how it plays out, and then at the end of the day, it's going to be how net. What does it look like when the battlefield settles down, the dust settles, there's an agreement, whatever the case may be. But yeah, it could go on for quite some time. I don't think it's near an end anytime soon. And what's interesting now is we may say we're done, but the Iranians may say, well, we're not done. We want some things, and they may ask for things which I think they're asking for now, which are off the table, like reparations or compensation for damage to their infrastructure. So,
what do you make of all the footage from this war from the U.S.? It seemingly is all firepower from the primes, right? You're seeing the prism shot of a HIMARS. We're seeing F-35s in action. You're not seeing nearly as much imagery, if any, from the new entrants, from the smaller players. Is that reading too deeply, or is it an issue of public disclosures, or what do you think's going on there?
Well, warfare is about destroying things and killing people, killing the enemy, and so hardware kills. That's always going to be there, right? Using missiles and advanced fighter aircraft and bombers, and whatever the case may be. That's not going away anytime soon. But I think just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. I'm sure there have been cyber attacks, things to take down their grid, to confuse their C2, things like that. We're just not seeing it. I think the question is, are we seeing AI applied in terms of those operations? I don't know. Maybe we won't be able to see it. I hope it's being used. I hope we're deploying the latest, greatest in terms of the AI being provided to the department. But I don't think that's obviously not obvious to us.
Yeah. AI in the department. I want to go to the Pentagon Anthropic beef spat quarrel feud. There's all sorts of ways you could describe it. I know you've been tweeting about it. So what's your take on it?
Well, of course, I lived through the dark days of 2018 when the spat began between Google and the department over Maven, right? And what was really troubling about that was not just that Google walked away from the contract, but at the same time, they were willing to sell to China and do business in China. And that really kind of stung. And I remember Joe Dunford, General Joe Dunford, who was my first chairman, saying, hey, look, we're the good guys, right? And so having lived through that, we've now seen in the years since a dramatic turnaround in terms of how Silicon Valley, and I'll use Silicon Valley as the proxy for all the other startup venues around the country, Boston and Austin and you name it. There's been a turnaround, a willingness to work with the department, and that's exciting, and it's needed because technology, people and technology are the two things that will allow us to continue to retain dominance on the battlefield. And so we need the best that Silicon Valley can to bring. And so my view was, look, I respect Anthropic's trying to take a principled stand here, but I think they're fundamentally wrong. As long as the department says, we're only going to use this for lawful purposes, then that's sufficient, So one of the things, when I left the department in 2020, in 2021, I joined up and became a partner and a board member in Red Cell, which is a startup VC firm working with AI in the defense, cyber, and healthcare sector, right? Our view is, as long as our customer is using it for lawful purposes, that's the best you're going to get and you should expect. Other than that, they're going to figure, the DoD is going to figure out, the concept of operations, the doctrine behind it, how they're going to use that technology, and I think that's the best we can expect.
Do you think this moment risks spooking new companies, AI executives from working with the Pentagon? If you're new to defense, if you're dual use and you've always done commercial and now you want to work at the Pentagon, why would you want to deal with this?
I am afraid it's going to divide the community. And I don't think, when you see the different positions taken by Anthropic and the department, to me there was a way to reconcile this. And maybe it just didn't have enough time to play out. But it seemed to me, what Dario was asking for, no use of surveillance and no use in terms of autonomous killing, and what DoD was saying for lawful purposes, first of all, I don't think DoD should have changed its position, but I think there was a way to reconcile that in the contract. And by the way, it does touch on a bigger issue I've spoken about publicly, is sooner rather than later, we have to resolve this issue about autonomy in both offensive and defensive weapons. We are using autonomy today in defensive weapons, have been for years.
For a long time.
In the Phalanx gun system. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, ask Claude. Claude will tell you that. And so in the example of naval warfare, or the case that was brought up, ballistic missile defense, of course you'd want to use a decision-making tool that could help you decide as quickly as possible to engage enemy missiles. I think the questions will come on the battlefield, and even then, there are shades of gray, right? I could see using autonomous systems, man on the loop, not in the loop, on the loop, in a battlefield like my war, Operation Desert Storm, where you're in a desert, a battlefield, there's civilians are not around, it's a heavy force versus a heavy force. Why not unleash autonomy in that situation? Urban combat's a little bit different, right? So I think we should be thinking about these intensely, these various scenarios, and then at the same time looking at how AI develops. And the question is going to be, are you concerned about collateral damage and civilian casualties? Yes, of course. That's the United States military. That's built into our ethics, into our UCMJ, everything else. We've got to worry about that. But if you find that an autonomous system is less likely to kill a civilian or create collateral damage than a 19-year-old young infantryman, then why not employ that tool? So I think we have to think more broadly about this and think through it, and then help reconcile those in Silicon Valley who are concerned and help DoD think through this as well. And I think there's common ground to be found here.
Is this conversation plagued by a bit of education gap? Like, obviously, people in this room are very tuned into defense and defense tech and autonomous weapons and that sort of thing. But the broader American public, are they familiar with Anthropic? Are they familiar with Aegis?
No, because what happens is they immediately they see the Terminator, right, or RoboCop out there running around, and they think that I don't want that. And by the way, I don't want that either. But I think we have an informed community here, and in many cases, people know one side or the other. And what you have to do is get both sides together, and the people who understand, who can translate, and get them together to kind of resolve these, because these are important issues. We're moving out. We're moving very quickly, thanks to great American companies and entrepreneurs and innovators and really smart people who are doing these incredible things. And so we have to, the philosophy, the doctrine, all those things have to catch up with that, because AI is just racing ahead.
The ethical principles for AI use, they published about 6 years ago when you were Defense Secretary.
I put it out in February 2020.
Yes.
Because we wanted to set a standard, not just for DoD, but for the U.S. government and arguably for the world.
Are they still relevant, or do they need updating?
Well, they should always be reviewed, continuously reviewed, but I think they've aged fairly well. I mean, when I introduced it in February 2020, I talked about the foundation being the Constitution, our values there, the UCMJ, Title 10, all these things that make the American military what it is. So that's when I see what we did then in February 2020, and I hear what Anthropic was saying today. I don't see a problem here that couldn't have been reconciled. And so, look, they should be looked at, updated as technology changes. And I think it's a good standard that should be preserved and modified as events change.
Let's pivot to your Red Cell experience, that Silicon Valley broad term. How has venture changed defense tech, or is it maybe has venture changed defense tech question?
I think venture has begun changing defense tech, and I think it has far more potential to do so if the department can change its processes and its approach towards startups, right? And so, I came from corporate America before becoming Secretary of the Army and Secretary of Defense, and so I knew that side of the ledger. And then when I got out, I tried to think, well, where can I make a difference, and what's the most exciting, innovative part of our ecosystem? And it's venture, right? And so I jumped into there with Red Cell and its commitment to use AI for, again, healthcare, cyber, and defense. And what you find when you're on that side is many venture companies don't understand the government, let alone the Department of Defense, and how to navigate it, and understand that you have to be a very sophisticated and a very patient investor if you're going to get into this space, because it's hard. And a couple of days ago, I asked the team, we work with a firm that does a lot of data analysis, and I said, tell me the numbers on venture, right, in terms of the department today, what it looks like. And it's startling, of new entrants to DoD, new entrants in 2025, the standard OTA award was $2.5 million. 2.5. I mean, that won't run payroll for, depending on the size of your team, maybe a month or two or three. But more alarmingly is the number of new awards, number of awards to new entrants. These are OTAs and whatnot. In 2025, new entrants only accounted for 0.6%, up from 0.5% the year prior. So we got a long way to go, and I know the administration, the team at the Pentagon is working hard on that, but it's that middle bureaucracy, that middle levels that you kind of get through in order to really find those gems of companies, ventures, entrepreneurs who are doing fantastic things, and give them the chance to show their goods.
I was going to say, what does it take to ensure the Pentagon's timelines match venture timelines, or is that just a pipe dream?
Look, it's hard. I've served on I've chaired two Atlantic Council commissions talking about this, the Valley of Death, and when you think about, I always pull out a pen and say, if I told you right now this pen could sink the Chinese Navy in a matter of 5 minutes, if I took it to the Pentagon today, by the time it went through the budget process and came out, was introduced in the Hill February of next year and went through that process, it would be 18 to 24 months.
It wouldn't look like a pen either.
It wouldn't look like a pen. It'd have more requirements and gizmos. But venture doesn't operate on those cycles, right? You're working on a shoelace. I mean, I've been with enough portfolio companies where you're asking, can we make it to the next payroll? Or when does our runway die out? And so it's constant fundraising. And so DoD needs to move quicker because the venture only has so much life, and we can't afford. My big concern is if we don't improve, the venture companies who have pivoted toward the Pentagon in the last few years will say, this is too hard. It's really too hard. It takes too long, and I can go make money elsewhere doing, apps or whatever the case may be. And we can't afford to lose that innovation because it really is going to make the difference, a really exceptional difference when it comes to warfare against China. And that's my biggest concern, frankly.
Last question here. What business, what sector, what field is exciting you the most in terms of investing? I think about Paul Kwan at General Catalyst has told me biodefense is something that deserves more attention.
Oh, when I was Secretary of the Army, I said AI was my #1 priority. And then as SecDef, I said the same thing, AI. But to me, the exciting part was, I'm going to go back to where we began, is the combination of AI and robotics, which gets you autonomy. To me, that's going to just fundamentally change things. If we can get to the point where we can put machines in the place of soldiers and sailors and airmen, taking the risks that we don't want otherwise sacrifice our people. Why not, right? So, I mean, the history of warfare has always been about getting greater range over your adversary, whether it was, you know, hitting them with a club or a spear or a sling, and eventually the bow and arrow, the crossbow, the cruise missile, the ballistic missile. Now we're at the point in time where you not only can fire things long range, but you can take the soldier out of the tank turret. You could take the infantryman out of the foxhole. You could take the sailor out of the ship, because we can have autonomy do many of those things. And my concern is we're not moving fast enough in terms of getting robotics, autonomous systems into the department, into the active duty Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And that's my concern, because I think that can be a game changer for us. We have the technology, we have the doctrine, the know-how. We got to get there before the Chinese.
Secretary Esper, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for your insights today.
Thank you.
Please, round of applause. Stick around, go grab a drink, hang out, come grab me, let's talk. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks.